So I thought we might leave some more discussion time at the end, and I wanted to kind of introduce a topic that we might reflect on our in our meditation today. And I've heard a new expression for this. Many of you who've been studying the Dharma would know about what we call the second arrow or the second dart, right? It's a wonderful teaching. And what it's really about is that, in our lives, I guess the way I've gotten to this is I've been thinking a lot about loss, how loss is such an integral part of our lives, and that we all will inevitably die, and no one gets out, as they say, of here alive. And so, but there's multiple losses, daily losses, loss of faith, perhaps sometimes lately in particular, maybe in the political situation, loss of people we love, loss of relationships, losses of places that maybe were open that you like to go to that have now had to close because they couldn't stay solvent. Loss of our youth, loss of our capabilities, things that we used to be able to do more easily physically, that we can find more challenging now. And so, in terms of the second arrow, oftentimes with loss, there's suffering, right? And the Buddha taught a lot about this word dukkha, suffering, that it's an integral part of our lives. And it's not to be understood as something wrong, but it is meant to be understood, particularly in loss, how that's a very natural part of living. But what we know when the Buddha talked about this second arrow is the way that we reflect on the difficulties in our lives, the way that we reflect on irritations, the ways that we bring more pain to the pain that's already there. So, for instance, when there's some irritation in our lives or when there's a sense of loss, we often think, and I find this is really applicable when I think about aging, oh, this shouldn't be happening. Why don't I have as much spring in my step as I used to? Why is it harder for me to get up and down off my cushion? It shouldn't be happening. Or why is this happening to me? So we bring this sort of second layer to the difficulties we experience in our lives. We think it shouldn't be happening to us. We often think it's personal. When there's a glitch in some services that we might be getting, I think I might have told the story last week about getting hung up on, maybe accidentally, maybe not, when I was trying to reschedule a flight. The daily kinds of irritations, when we make calls and people don't call back, well, that shouldn't be happening. So it's this layer we add on. And the way I've heard it spoken about that's new to me is what's called the pain of pain. What we add on, how much we get irritated with the daily irritations. Maybe it's in driving or the weather. I wish it wasn't so cloudy out. I want to enjoy the warmer weather. I want more sun. And then we add on to that. Why isn't that happening? Why is that happening to me? And so to be able to bring this awareness to whatever our daily disappointments, irritations, and losses that we experience. And so the Buddha called this the second arrow or second dart. In the teachings, he taught about it that, when a man is pierced or a person is pierced by a dart, that's the first arrow. That's the arrow that, actually really hurts. It hurts physically. But the second arrow is how we add on to it. Why did this happen to me? What's wrong with that person that did this? Why am I suffering so much? This shouldn't be hurting me so much. What else is being caused by the damage that's been caused that happened because of this first dart? It's a way that we proliferate, a way that we say, what's happening isn't right. And that's the pain of pain. It may not be right that it's happening, but how we experience it. And so one of the things I was thinking about, just with small irritations, how they last, how they can be, can kind of go on for a while and then proliferate, particularly, say, in a relationship with somebody else, where we feel hurt and then we begin to think about what's wrong with that other person or what's wrong with me. And that's where the mind goes. That's the proliferation. And we become more and more irritated. And so you might be thinking of some examples in your life. Maybe this is touching some things that are happening. Could be in a work situation. But for our meditation today, I thought we might use this teaching and begin to understand how we bring more pain to the pain that's already there, the pain of pain. The very, very common psychological phenomenon. Loss around our work situations, around our relationships. So if that feels like it's going to be too much, or you get caught in a lot of sort of thinking and overthinking, just come back to the breath. And maybe you feel irritated that this is the meditation, this is the guidance. If that starts to happen, if you feel like the irritation is just growing and growing, if you can't really reflect on it and it becomes more agitating, just come back to the breath. Any questions or comments before we begin? Okay. So this really, the point of all of this, and I have a little quote here that I really liked. This is from Naomi Rachel Riemann, who's a physician who's pretty famous for writing a book called Kitchen Table Wisdom. Maybe some of you have heard of it. She works with dying, or used to anyway, work with dying patients. Even I think before there was hospice. And she, one line I have here from her is, the purpose of every life is to grow in wisdom and learn to love better. And these are usually described as the two wings of practice, of Dharma practice, to cultivate both wisdom and compassion, or wisdom and love. Right? And I'm hoping that this teaching of the second arrow, or the pain of pain, might help us to cultivate some more wisdom into how our minds are working and compassion for it. So let's begin. First you want to just take your meditation seat. See if you can let all these words go. And start with connecting to the breath. Maybe finding a place where you're resting inside, connecting with your intention for showing up here today. Perhaps the way this is a way of caring for yourself. And connecting with or seeing it as an intention to grow in both wisdom and love. Maybe starting out with taking a few deeper breaths. Feeling the breath in the body, how it naturally expands the body on the in-breath. And then really taking time to slow down and complete your out-breath. Feeling the release that can come with that. The way the body, in some subtle or maybe not so subtle ways, can relax with the out-breath. Can let go. And if you'd like to practice with this idea of the second arrow or the pain of pain, you might bring to mind something that's mildly irritating. Maybe with this suggestion, lots of possibilities come up. If so, pick just one. Maybe not the hardest one. Something mildly irritating. Maybe something's going on right now that's irritating. Letting yourself feel that irritation, feeling it in the body. Feeling it in the mind. And notice what it's like in the heart. Just in the heart space, whatever you imagine that is. If there's a squeeze, the physical qualities, whether there's tightness. Is there repetition in the mind about the incident? Is there some way it's getting replayed? And with each replay, more irritation manifests. So noticing the qualities of irritation, the mood, the physicality of it. Remembering to breathe with it, breathing through it. Remembering that this is an exercise in being able to be more self-reflective. And in bringing awareness to whether there's pain of the pain, see if there are ways you might be embellishing this, adding on to it. Maybe qualities of blame, thoughts of blame, some belief that this shouldn't be happening, judgments. Whether the adding on the second arrow comes from repeating the story to yourself. In essence, beginning to bring some attention and reflection to the ways that you're adding on. Perhaps adding on by feeling victimized. Or adding on by becoming more rejecting of yourself or the other. As best you can without any self-blame. With the intent of growing in wisdom, of understanding. With the intent of caring. About how you're hurting. With the intent of self-compassion. And at any moment, simply coming back to the breath. When thinking gets dense or distracting yourself with something else because this is hard to do. Remembering our collective intention to grow in wisdom and love. coming back to the irritation, revisiting it to understand the first noble truth the Buddha taught is that suffering is meant to be understood. Not something we have to fix or something that's wrong with us. Can I understand the pain of pain more fully? Staying with it as best you can. Remembering the intention is to grow in wisdom and self-compassion. Understanding more about how we hurt, how we add on to pain. As we come close to the end of our time sitting together, it might be helpful to simply come back to the breath. Again, feeling both the in-breath and the out-breath. Part of the way we hold our pain is to not breathe out fully. As if we're keeping something inside without realizing we're doing it. So elongating and breathing out as fully as you can, attending to this out breath. And if you'd like to bring your palms together in front of your chest in prayer position, honoring your showing up, honoring your intention to understand suffering more deeply, honoring the intention to cultivate wisdom and compassion. How this can increase our capacity for empathy. For caring of beings known and unknown. For caring about suffering. And whenever you're ready, feel free to open your eyes, letting yourself move around and stretch. Taking your time. Noticing what the practice has brought you.